Hello and welcome. So in this session, we are going to talk about Spark runtime architecture and specifically in detail, how does Spark run on Yarn? So every Spark application, as you all know, is a distributed application, right? And a distributed application needs a cluster to run on. So let's assume to begin with, we have a cluster where we have a bunch of master nodes. It could be one or two or three, any number of master nodes, and a bunch of worker nodes. And what we have done is we have installed Yarn on this cluster, which means you'll have a Yarn resource manager running on the master node and a bunch of node managers running on the worker nodes, right? So this is how Yarn works. So far, nothing about Spark, right? Now let's say a Spark submit command comes in and it submits an application to Yarn resource manager. So when a Spark submit command submits a job to Yarn resource manager, the first thing that Yarn resource manager needs to do is it needs to figure out a node where it can basically run the application master. Okay, basically the driver of your Spark application. So from its resource cache, it knows that which node can actually host a container which can run your application master. Let's say it figures out this is the worker node where it needs to launch your application master. So it contacts the node manager of that particular worker node and it launches an application master on that node. Now, what does this application master do? This application master basically is going to run the driver of your application, right? So the driver of your Spark application is going to run inside a Yarn container, which is called application master container. Inside this container, the driver of your application is going to get launched. Please note that in case of Scala jobs in Spark, it's going to be a JVM, which is going to host this driver. But in case of PySpark applications, actually there are going to be two drivers. One for the PySpark main method and one for the JVM. And internally, PySpark driver, the code that you have written in Python, is gonna make use of the JVM itself through the Py4j interface. Because inherently Spark is written in Scala, right? Spark is not written in Python. Python wrapper has been provided only for the developers. Internally, those Python commands or code that you write, they are making use of the Scala library itself, right? Anyways, let's keep that aside for now. Your driver of your application gets launched inside the application master container. And when the driver gets launched, it's the responsibility of the driver to ask for more resources, because now the driver knows how much resources does it need, what is kind of the workload that it needs. So what it's going to do is, based on your driver code, it's going to figure out the resources that are needed, and then it's going to go back to the Yarn resource manager to ask for those resources. So Yarn resource manager will get that request from the driver, and then it will launch the executors on various other worker nodes, or it could be the same worker node as well, depending on where the resources are available. Yarn resource manager will launch multiple executors on various worker nodes, right? Now, what happens inside an executor is you have multiple tasks which are given work by the application master driver. So your driver will give workload to these tasks within these executors. These tasks on various worker nodes will run in parallel. They will do the job that has been asked by the driver, and then they will, based on some action, they will return the results back to the driver. And that is how your Spark application runs in a Yarn resource, Yarn cluster, basically. It's not really difficult. Let me just explain the flow once again. Spark submit command comes in. It contacts the Yarn resource manager. It asks for an application master container where it can run its driver. The application master container gets launched on one of the worker nodes. The driver gets launched within the application master container. Driver knows what resources are needed to complete the application. It goes back to Yarn resource manager, asks for those resources. Based on that request, Yarn resource manager will launch multiple executors on different nodes. Every executor is going to run multiple tasks within that executor based on number of cores and based on the configuration that you have provided. Each task will do its job in parallel, and then finally the results get back to the driver, from where, depending on where you want to store those results, the results get committed to the output destination. So that was at a high level how Spark works on a YARN cluster. I haven't obviously gotten into very deep details, but if you know this, then this is good enough for you to clear the interviews. Thank you so much.